Hello, everybody. Just adjusting the camera here. And there we go. Okay. Again, sorry for the quality of our webcam. It's kind of terrible, but we're doing the best we can with what we got. Just taking out a quick message so that when everyone gets here. Go. So we'll just go ahead and wait until everybody gets here. I'm going to go ahead and go plug in our phone because I just got a buzz that's it's going to die. So I will be right back. There we go. There we are. Now it's not quite so in the shot. Oh, thank you, the Coven System. Congrats on 700. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Jedi Jen, hello from the Hypergalactic System. Who's here today? Hello, Hypergalactic System. It is Kit and others co-conscious right now because there's a lot of us leaning all together and sharing awareness at the moment. But it's mostly me. I'm the fronting person, and everybody else is being co-conscious at the moment. So if that changes, I'm sure whoever shows up will let you know. Aw, thank you. Hi, Kit, and congrats. Oh, thank you. Much appreciated. If you guys are wondering why I'm reading off the comments, it's because we've had some people talk about when they watch these later that they're not able to see the chats. So we're going to go ahead and read them off just to make sure that everybody knows what the heck we're talking about so they're not just getting half of the conversation. How is your Friday going? Oh, well, it's going all right. Little tired. We've been having a lot of trouble sleeping for over a year now, and we finally figured out why. Turns out there was a member of our system who was very badly triggered by an event that happened when we went back to our hometown to visit our grandfather. We were walking in the mall with our mother, and some random guy who was walking the mall decided instead of going around us, he was going to grab us, pick us up, and move us. And as you can imagine, this completely freaked us all out. I proceeded to freeze personally and be like, oh my god, what is happening? And everybody else proceeded to freak out and be like, what is going on? And this particular system member was very, very upset about it and has not felt safe since. And because I wasn't able to communicate with them, we only just recently found out what was going on with help from our therapist. So now we're kind of working through that and trying to get back to being able to sleep so that we're not constantly exhausted. And other than that, been arguing with people on Reddit over the fact that DID does not involve delusions because that's not part of the diagnosis, and that yes, someone can have delusions due to a comorbid disorder, but that no, being delusional is not part of DID. So it's been a rather up and down kind of a day. On the bright side, my daughter brought me breakfast in bed this morning. She decided she was going to make me toast and bring me a glass of water, and it was very sweet. So definitely appreciated that. So everything else has gone well other than the being tired and people arguing things that don't make any logical sense. So yeah, otherwise things are fine. The Coven System, same. Me and a few of the others have been co-conscious until like 5 a.m. watching Dance Moms. Yeah, we're co-conscious a lot recently just because there's been a lot of people showing up that I didn't previously have the ability to communicate with, and we've all been trying to figure out how to help them acclimate to being up here in the front. So there's been a lot of co-consciousness as everybody tries to figure out the new world we inhabit that they're not used to because they haven't seen the outside world in decades. So, yeah. OMG, awful. Yes, it was very awful. Being grabbed by some random stranger, not fun. Just no. Aw, yeah, very much aw. Aw, cute. How old is she? She is 8. Yep. She's 8 years old. She brought me cinnamon toast with no margarine on the cinnamon toast. It was dry cinnamon toast. It was just bread with cinnamon sugar on it. Because she doesn't like margarine on her toast, so she didn't put any on mine because she didn't think about it. So it was very dry cinnamon toast, but I appreciated it nonetheless. She also brought me figs, but unfortunately the figs are dried figs, and they have crystallized a little bit, and they're very hard to chew, so I'm actually going to be turning those into fig Newtons, along with whoever else in our system wants to help, and anybody externally who wants to help, so yeah, but I drank the water and ate the toast. Because it was very much appreciated that she did something so thoughtful and nice. Jedi Gem, thought that counts very much. Yes, the thought is always what counts, and trust me, even if what she had brought had been awful, I would have eaten it anyway. Because, you know what, she is my baby, and I love her, and, you know, I'm not going to make her sad when she did something nice for me. The Coven system, adorable. Does she interact with littles in your system? If you have any, my boyfriend and I are looking forward to having kids and then meeting the littles in my system. Yes, she does, in fact, interact with various different littles in our system. She mostly interacts with Lo in particular because Lo is out the most often of all of our littles and is closer in age to my daughter, so they spend a lot more time playing and doing things together. But various other members of the system who are comfortable being out around outside people have come and hung out with her and, you know, done things like that. Even some of our teenagers too, not just the littles. Like Marie in our system and Tandy in my husband's system, the two of them are married. They once took her out to get ice cream at the store and pick out different fun things to have because they wanted to buy her a nice treat. So, you know, she gets to hang out with lots of people in our systems, both mine and my husband's. So, yay, sharing is caring. Does she call them their names and know the difference between you and the others? Sorry if I seem nosy. Not nosy at all. Yeah, she does actually call them by their names. And she does know how to tell the difference because for both my husband and I, a lot of our system mates are fairly distinct. They're perfectly capable of pretending to be either one of us if necessary for safety reasons or because they don't feel comfortable. But when they're being themselves, they're pretty distinct people and they have some very noticeable traits. Like a fair number of my system mates are left-handed, for instance, and I'm right-handed. So it's kind of a dead giveaway when somebody reaches for something with their left hand. But, I don't know, accents, different ways of talking, different mannerisms, etc. abound in both of our systems, so she tends to be able to tell the difference. Granted, she quite frequently calls everybody every name of every family member she can think of. Like, she'll go to ask my husband something and say dad, grandma, various other people's names until she gets the right one. She just has trouble remembering names sometimes, but, you know, that's okay. But yes, she does call everybody by their names. Hansonym, hello, hello! The Coven system. Oh, it's so great. They all get to have their own relationship with her if they want one. I bet you're all the sweetest parents. Aw, that's very sweet. Yeah, we work very hard to make sure that everybody who is a positive influence gets the chance to spend time with my daughter if they want to. And, you know, I'm the only one who directly feels like her parent, probably because I was there when she was born and I spent the time with her the most when she was a tiny baby, because, you know, it's very grounding when a tiny little human needs you and, you know, requires your presence for their functioning and living. So, you know, I tended to be around the most. In fact, it's the actually longest period of continuous memory I have is from the time she was born. So, you know, there you go. But yeah, everybody has some various relationship to her, some various relationship to me, some various relationship to my husband in some way or another. Not everybody always gets along all the time, but, you know, we do our best to make it work. And, you know, we make very, very sure that the only system members who are ever interacting with my daughter are people who are positive and who aren't going to have difficulties being functional around her, just because, you know, it's a safety issue and we want to make sure everything's okay and all of that. So, you know, if somebody wants to have a relationship with her, then we, you know, let them know that, okay, that's fine. We just need to get you to a place of being safe and functional first, and then you can. Because we don't want her seeing people using maladaptive coping mechanisms and things like that, and to learn those behaviors herself. So that's something that we work really hard on. But overall, everything is pretty good most of the time. So now that you're a YouTube superstar, what are the plans for your channel going forward? Well, we appreciate the compliment. I'm not sure I would say we're a YouTube superstar or anything like that, but that's very nice of you to say. Plans going forward are just to continue to make videos and continue to put out good content and all of that. And when we reach 1,000 subscribers, we actually plan to start a Patreon account so that we can receive donations, and we're going to use donations to do things like upgrade the webcam that we have here, since, you know, as you can probably all see, it's not really the greatest, and do things like donate to DID research because it's incredibly underfunded. And so our plan is that 10% of all proceeds would go straight to DID research, because, you know, we really want DID to be researched more. And otherwise, just, you know, help out running things, you know, updating software, keeping the videos good and high quality. That's pretty much what we'd be using any donations we got for, is just keeping the channel running and making sure it's good quality. Hampson M. I didn't introduce my littles to my daughter until she was 14. I only understood I had a system when she was 4, and it took me quite a while to accept my OSDD and understand how to cooperate. That makes sense. I mean, you know, everybody is going to be different, and everybody has to make the choice of what works best for their individual situation, their individual system, their individual family, etc. For us, because various members of our system are so very distinct when they're being themselves, especially the littles who have a really hard time pretending to be an adult person or pretending to be me. So we figured that it was best for us to explain to her what was going on in kid-appropriate terms that has evolved as she's gotten older, given more information and so on. But so that she didn't think that the reason that we had these drastic behavior changes from one person to another was somehow something to do with her. Because we all can remember being a kid and, you know, seeing the drastically different behavior of certain family members who had undiagnosed mental health issues and thinking it was our fault. So we didn't want that to be something that happened with my daughter. So that was something that we all decided was a good idea to just, you know, let her know, and, you know, let her know that, you know, this was something that was private information. It was our information to tell other people, that she didn't need to be telling other people about that information about us, but that it was okay for her to know that. And that, you know, we wanted her to understand so she didn't feel scared or uncomfortable. But like I said, everyone has to be able to do what's right for them. There is no one-size-fits-all answer by any means. Jedi Gen LOL heart, yay. Miracle, congrats on getting over 700 subscribers. Oh, thank you. Much appreciated. The Coven system. If you don't want to comment on this, that's fine, but have you heard about the Team Pinata situation these last few weeks? It really feels like the DID community just can't get away from some form of drama. Yeah, we're pretty much just staying out of it because it doesn't directly involve us. We did not personally know them. And we generally feel it's better to stay out of other people's drama, or drama in general, if at all possible, simply because we don't want it to negatively impact our ability to educate and work on fighting the stigma, because we get mired down in the drama with the general DID community. So while we certainly participate in the DID community, we generally stay out of any sort of drama or altercations unless it involves us personally. Now, we definitely don't think it's good that there's been all of this drama lately. We definitely think that's a problem, but we choose to just not get involved because, quite frankly, the people who are involved in these various situations of drama have significantly larger number of subscribers than we do, a significantly larger poll than we do, and some of them, we're not going to name any names, of doing things to deplatform people that don't agree with them. So, we kind of just figured it's best not to get involved. Jedi did good parents. Aw, thank you. Tamsin M. Oh, I would have done it differently if I'd understood and accepted my system. I would have told her early on. I often was criticized for not telling her. Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that. You didn't deserve to be criticized. Hey, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Everybody gets to where they're getting to in their own time. And, you were not wrong for not explaining something that you didn't really understand and accept at the time. It takes time. Acceptance is hard. Denial comes along with dissociation, because if you accept what the dissociation means, you have to accept why it exists. And that's really hard when, the whole entire point of dissociation is to keep you from facing that trauma in the first place, because your brain didn't think you were able to survive it. So it's completely understandable that it would take time to face that and accept that, and that's not wrong. Yeah, kids are so perceptive, so it's often best to explain to them so they don't internalize or get scared. Very true. That is why we made that decision, is just because we knew what was going on. We'd had a diagnosis. We'd gotten to a place of acceptance by the time she was old enough to be talked to about it. Because by the time she was old enough for us to have that conversation, we'd been in therapy for 3 solid years. So we'd been actively working on our healing, and we're in a good place of acceptance by that point. But, like I said, it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all answer, and everybody has to do those things in their own time and at their own comfort level. That's very respectable. Right now, all I'm worried about is Dissociated getting better after distancing themselves from them and working on their system. Yeah, we definitely feel for anybody who's been negatively impacted by the recent dramas in the DID community on any sort of personal level or just peripheral level. We definitely feel for everyone. And we extend our support, concern, and empathy to anybody who is struggling because of that drama, but definitely going to stay out of that. Thompson M, every situation is different and you know your kids best. Sorry you got a hard time for doing what you thought was best. Very much agreed with that. Yeah, one of my littles tried to play with my daughter and it scared her, so we made the decision that I would be mom and they wouldn't come out with her. Well, that's completely understandable. You've got to do what's right for you. Not all kids are comfortable seeing other members of the system. Some children find it scary. Some children find it unnerving. It's going to depend on your individual kid and your individual situation. For us, my daughter has never cared. She thinks it's really cool that she gets to hang out with all of these people who are so different from me. because they have completely different perspectives than I do on a lot of things. And while everybody is in agreement that if I make a rule, that's the rule because I'm the parent, they still interact with her differently than I do, and she likes that. So, it's going to be different for everybody. There's no right answer here. It was best for us at the time. It would be different if I had a little one now. Yeah, that does make sense. Kevin, I worry about Nin so much. Yeah, like I said, we definitely extend empathy to anybody who's been negatively impacted by the drama. I think when worded right, kids are a lot better at understanding that adults give them credit for. If it's good enough for the goose, then it's good enough for the gander. This is true. I mean, kids can often understand a lot of things a lot better than people give them credit for, but every kid is very different, just like every DID system and OSDD system is very different. So, it's one of those things that there's never going to be one answer that works for everyone. But definitely explaining in a calm, simple, easy to understand manner that doesn't use a bunch of complicated terms that most kids don't even know what they mean is definitely a good idea if you're in a place where you're ready and it's safe to do that. And not everybody is, and that's okay. I was worried about telling her. She said, cool. How do they get their names? Aw. Well, that's really awesome that, she was accepting and all of that once you guys were able to tell her. That's really cool. We didn't discover we were a system until recently. Our youngest is 19, but has mental health issues she won't get help for and is abusive, so we don't feel comfortable sharing with her. Well, that's understandable, and we completely extend empathy to you. That is not an easy situation to be in. And I am going to make this statement right here and now. I think that it is a problem that people often discount or minimize abuse towards parents by children, whether that be small children or adult children, because trust me, there are small children who can downright be abusive due to their own issues that they have going on. Whether that's what they intend or not, the effect is still the same. It's kind of like for a lot of people who grew up with abusive parents. Maybe their parents didn't mean to be abusive. That was not necessarily their intention, but the effect is still the same, regardless of what they intended. So we extend all of the sympathy in the world to you guys and want to let you know that, while we're not going to go into detail simply because my daughter is very young and it's not really something that we want out on the internet for the rest of her life to follow her around, but let's just say that there have been times before my daughter was in a good, healthy place and before her own mental health things were managed properly, that there was a lot of scary situations going on from her end towards us. So you can definitely understand how difficult that is on a personal level, even if our situations are very different. And we completely understand why you would not feel comfortable sharing with your daughter if she is abusive towards you. That is completely valid. Kevin, yeah, if I had understood it better myself back then, it would have been easier. Makes perfect sense. Definitely, we agree with that too. If, the better you understand it, the easier it is to explain. If she could take care of herself, we would throw her out. Understandable feeling. Completely understandable feeling. Nobody ever deserves to live with someone, whether that is a family member, a friend, or anyone else, even their own child, who is hurting them. Nobody ever deserves that. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, parents are put under an insane amount of pressure to tolerate abusive, unacceptable behavior from someone simply because they're their kid. I've seen that happen lots of times, especially with single parents or parents who don't have really good support networks. It's really, really common for there to be this huge pressure, but parents with more than one person involved definitely face it as well, and it's wrong. Nobody is entitled to hurt and abuse anybody. Doesn't matter how they're related to you. It does not matter if they're your kid. It's not okay. Tamsin and Jenna, I think you know very much best about your kids. I believe you should go with your gut. Definitely agree with that. Something exciting in our system recently is that we've had a large group of unknown alters in our system for months now, and recently we got to know one of them. Awesome. Yeah, we've recently gotten to know a few new, to me, individuals in our system as well that I didn't previously have communication with, so I can understand how cool that is. It's nice to be able to really interact with somebody for the first time that you've peripherally known is there, but you weren't able to communicate with before. Even if that person, might have a lot of issues going on, it's still nice to be able to talk to them. She scares the littles a bit, but we're teaching her how to act around them. That's a very good idea. Always good to help people get to a place where they feel safe and comfortable, help people to move past any maladaptive coping mechanisms. Basically, anything you can do that can build safety for the entire system is always a good thing. Internally, externally, doesn't matter. Building safety is always very important, and it's going to take time. It doesn't happen overnight, and that's not wrong. We've had plenty of interactions with system members, many of which none of you guys have ever met simply because they don't feel comfortable being on videos or are not allowed to be on videos because some of the things that they have to say are not things that we feel comfortable having anyone that we legally share a body with saying on the internet. But we can understand that sometimes when people come up, they can have some very maladaptive thought processes, some very maladaptive coping mechanisms, can be very scary. I remember having an interaction with one of my system mates where he was incredibly verbally abusive all of the time and liked to say all kinds of horrible, nasty, mean slurs about people. And we worked with him a lot to get him to a place where he realized that that wasn't going to accomplish the goal he was trying to accomplish, because his goal was to try to keep us safe. He was just doing it in a very maladaptive way. And so we worked with him on that. So can definitely understand that sometimes it's going to take some help before somebody can be a functional, healthy member of the system. Kevin, that's great. You're able to start communicating. Agreed with that. Yes, that is great, Kevin. Also agreed with that. It's super exciting, especially because we've been waiting so long for the opportunity. And then smiley faces, yay. Yeah. Definitely can understand that. Because as the host, I personally have a different experience than a lot of my system mates. Because my function is to exist here in the outside world. And so I experience things a little differently. So I tend to be very excited whenever anybody that I haven't been able to communicate with, even if they're markedly unpleasant in their initial communication, is able to communicate with me, simply because my personal goal is to get to a place where I am able to communicate with everyone in our system and that we all can be healthy and cooperative together. So, it's definitely always nice when I'm able to talk to somebody who I haven't been able to talk to before. So I can definitely understand that. Oh gosh, we had an alter who unintentionally spread some misinformation in our DID book. So we've been put on probation from fronting. Also, they've been put on probation from fronting. Yeah, we do that too as well. We have a how do I explain this exactly? We have an internal setup for us that we developed over time with the help of therapy, where we have what we like to call a tether. It's an internal thing that looks kind of like a belt that essentially, without causing any discomfort, pain, or otherwise at all, it's just, you don't even feel it's there. It makes it so that while a particular system member can wander around in our internal headscape and, interact with our internal world and be co-conscious, they are not in any way, shape, or form able to front, whether that's co-fronting or fully fronting. And we only ever do this in situations where it's absolutely necessary because that person is not safe in their actions or behaviors. Like, for an example, we had to do that with a couple of system members that we'd recently become acquainted with that none of us in the front had actually met before, who were making threats to do things that were very, very not safe for our system or our body or anybody. And so we were like, okay, no, sorry, you get to be on a little probationary timeout until you are to a place where you are safe to be out in the outside world without doing something that's going to irreparably harm us. So yeah, we can understand that. We've had to put people on timeout on more than one occasion simply because their behavior was really, really unsafe. And it's always a last resort. We always try to reach people and communicate with them and get them to a place of safety and healthiness and being functional without needing to do that. But in extreme cases, we don't have a heck of a lot of choice because we can't have people fronting who are going to do things that would irreparably harm us. We had a split in January, the first that we know of for years, who is an abuser introject. He snuck up on us, and for the first time, and for the time being, we've had to make him a forest in the headspace with a force field. Yeah, he tried to hurt our host right away. He'll have to stay there till we can get him in therapy. Makes perfect sense. It's very similar with our tethering system. You got to do what you got to do to keep your system mates safe, to keep yourselves all safe, to keep your body safe, to keep outside people around you from being exposed to the worry and the fear of somebody doing something harmful to your body or to the system itself. So it's completely understandable. Trust me, we understand. The answer to the question about hosting, describing being a host is just fronting, and it was super embarrassing because we didn't see it until weeks later. Oh yeah, I can imagine that being awkward, because it's one of those things that unfortunately language is imperfect and sometimes there's misunderstandings, but it's definitely good to make sure that if there's been any sort of misinformation unintentionally spread, that it's corrected. Like, we don't know everything. We fully, completely accept that we don't know everything. So if we say something in a video or a stream and somebody points out, hey, that's actually not correct, here's this information, and they actually have information to back it up, they're not just telling us we're wrong, they actually give us facts so that we can see that and correct these views, then we're happy to do that. So we think that's great. It's always good to learn more. Nobody knows everything. It was humiliating to find out we basically had an entire chapter that was completely incorrect in our book without even noticing for so long. Yeah, I can imagine that would be very unfortunate. Yeah, the only books we've ever worked on writing, because we haven't actually finished one, but we've worked on a lot of nonfiction stuff about our lives, and that never really went anywhere simply because somebody would get triggered and then it just kind of got deleted. So then we just started focusing on fiction, and we found a lot more success doing that. So, more power to you guys that you're able to do that and actually write a book about DID, because that's not something we've ever been able to actually accomplish. So good for you guys. Yeah, it would be definitely uncomfortable to realize that, oh no, there's a big giant chunk of incorrect information. Can definitely understand why that would be no fun. Oh yeah, we fixed it immediately and gave them a very long lesson on terminology, so hopefully we can count on it not happening again. Definitely always good, you know? Like, we've had instances where we've had to correct different ideas that were held by various of our system mates that were definitely problematic or simply just misinformed. So, can definitely relate on that. And yeah, it's always good to, talk to people about these things when you notice that, because letting somebody run around with misinformation just isn't helpful. So, we can definitely agree that that's a good thing to do. We've actually had instances where we had members of our system who had some very problematic misinformation that they had been given by abusers about things in life, and it took a long time and a lot of effort and a lot of help from various people who generally do a lot of the internal structuring of our system to communicate with them and help them to move on to a healthier perspective. But yeah, it's not fun when you realize that somebody you share a headspace with has this incorrect assumption, and you're like, oh no, well, what do I do with that? And that's why it's always important to communicate as much as you can and work together as best as you can to correct any sort of issues like that, at least in our experience. What do you do for grounding? We're new and our host struggles with this. The 5-4-3-2-1 method doesn't work at all. Okay, so for us, we've done lots of different things over the years for grounding, and some work sometimes better than other things. It really depends on what we're needing to ground from. So, for instance, if it's a body memory, like say we're experiencing body pain, then a lot of times doing something that is soothing to take care of our body can be very grounding and helpful and help to alleviate that pain. If it's a flashback, finding something with a very strong scent or a very distinctive texture can be really helpful for keeping us in the present. Actually, we have a link on a couple of our videos which is all about different grounding techniques. There's a site. If you look up 101 grounding techniques, you should be able to find it. But it's got a really long list of 101 different things you can try for different grounding things, because what works for one group is not necessarily going to work for everyone. So it's definitely good to try things out. It's a lot of trial and error, really. Deep breathing has been helpful for us. There's an app that we use called the Tapping Solution, which uses a form of meditation called tapping meditation. It's similar to the principles used in EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is a type of therapy people use to reprocess trauma. We found workbooks really helpful for giving us techniques for grounding and for grounding us. Sometimes just reading something that brings us back to the present can be helpful. Listening to music, watching movies, calling up a friend, calling up a safe family member, different things like that. Calling a crisis line if we really need one has often been something that's really helped to ground us when we're in a really bad place. So it's kind of one of those things where you're going to have to try out different things until you figure out what works. But those are our suggestions just based on our experience. So try those, try anything else you can think of, as long as it's safe, as long as it's healthy, and as long as it's not going to hurt you or anybody else. Whatever works for you guys is a good thing. So there's no wrong way to cope as long as it's healthy. Is there a specific number of alters a system needs to be considered polyfragmented? Generally, it's 100 plus. That is the generally accepted definition of polyfragmented. There are people who use different definitions, but the most widespread one that we've ever seen is the 100 plus. And that does not mean that every single individual has to be very distinct, hence the fragmented part of polyfragmented. But yeah, 100 plus is the most common definition that we've ever seen. We have close to 90 alters and call ourselves polyfragmented, but the other systems we've seen using that term have several hundred, and it makes us feel like we're using the term too loosely. Well, at close to 90, you guys certainly have a large system. And so while it doesn't fit the general definition, there is probably a word out there that would fit your experience perhaps a little bit more distinctly so people know what you're talking about when you say it. But, you know, saying like you're a large system or a big system, you know, might help. I am honestly really not sure what terminology would be best for that. You kind of are just going to have to figure out what works best for you guys to explain to other people what you mean. Because the reality of language, in our experience, is that the point is to communicate to other people. So to be understood, you definitely want to try to find a term that's going to work best to make sure that they understand what you mean. But unfortunately, we have not heard a term that would work for that, so I'm not really sure. You're looking for switching, grounding mostly. It's not smooth sometimes, and we get stuck between. Oh yeah, yeah. We've had front stuck as an issue more than once, and we've had people stuck in between switches more than once. That causes a horrible migraine for me personally. It's really not very fun. Generally, for us, we found that using something that has a positive association for whoever's trying to come to the front is really helpful. Like for the littles, a lot of them need like toys or things like that. So if one of them gets stuck in the middle of a switch, a lot of times cuddling a toy or having something nearby that they really like, turning on a favorite TV show, something like that, can help unstick them and bring them all the way to the front. And, you know, if somebody gets front stuck, a lot of the times relaxing and calming activities can really help to get it so that they can go back inside if they need to. So it's really kind of trial and error, but that's our experience. Hopefully that will help you guys. Thanks. I'll look for that link. You are very welcome. Really hope it helps. What works best for me is to look around where I am and label everything I see: table, plant, books, red chair, carpet, etc. Sometimes labeling all our physical sensations in that same way. Yeah, that is actually a really good suggestion. We've heard of that one before. It's not one that we've ever tried, only because a lot of us get really disoriented when we're triggered, and we have trouble parsing what is in our environment very well, unless we're directly touching it. So, you know, it's one of those not one size fits all answer kind of thing. When you began to fall in love with your husband, when you wanted to be in a relationship with him, how did the rest of the alters take it? Well, at first, there were various members of our system who were like, I don't trust you because you're big and tall and really strong and no. Basically, there are some of our system mates who are uncomfortable around big, tall men, largely because a lot of the people who hurt us were big, tall men. So that was something that we had to work through. And there was a time when a lot more of the members of our system interacted with him more regularly, but due to some unfortunate actions on his part that have led to some hurt feelings and some distrust. Right now, I'm one of the only people who really is interacting with him. I'm not going to go into details just because I don't want to besmirch him on the internet, because he is my husband and I do love him. But without going into detail, he told some untruths, lied about some things, and did some other things that were really hurtful to me and to other members of the system, even if that was not what he intended to do. And so right now, everybody's kind of working on rebuilding that relationship. I am not normally a very forgiving individual, to be honest with you, but I am working very hard to get to that place of forgiveness with him, because I love him, and I'm a lot more willing to do that than some of the other members of our system. So it's one of those things that we're just kind of working it out. Unfortunately, because we both have mental health issues, and because he has not previously been in therapy dealing with his side of things and dealing with his stuff, and none of his system mates have been dealing with their stuff either, there were some bad decisions made. But we're hoping that everything's gonna be okay and, even out, and we'll all get to a good place again. We didn't know we were a system until after we married our current husband, and they don't like him much. We were planning on getting a divorce before COVID. Oh, that's hard. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. There have been a couple of times when my husband and I have considered getting a divorce because of issues that were going along with problems in our relationship that we didn't think were possible to be resolved at the time. But we went to marriage counseling and we did the work. And we got to a place where we were able to be functional and happy. Now, that's not going to work for everybody. Sometimes a relationship just isn't salvageable, and that's okay. That's not wrong. Everybody has to make the decision for themselves and as a system who they want in their life. So, as it is right now, there are some of my system mates who actively dislike my husband right now. However, they also have very close, amicable relationships with many of his system mates, and that complicates things a bit. So it's one of those things that we're all just working on it together and trying to get to a good place. So, basically, if you guys choose to get a divorce, that is perfectly valid and you have every right to do that. I'm just giving a little information about our experience. No judgments. It was a grounding technique that my psychiatrist insisted I do if a flashback was starting. It did take some practice, but I found it helpful once I'd been coached through it several times. But yeah, it probably does really help to have somebody coach you through it. We've actually had, we've had our therapist coach us through some different grounding and coping techniques as well. So yeah, sometimes it really does take somebody helping you practice it before you get good at it, because it's honestly difficult to practice it when you're not triggered and then remember to do it when you are. But repetition tends to create, I guess, like a form of muscle memory almost, where your body goes, oh yeah, I can do this thing. So definitely practice does help. Hampson M said Jedi Gen, we had the same experience. Jedi Gen, Hampson M, I'll try it. And it's quite difficult since my system wants nothing to do with my husband. Yeah, that's probably hard. Divorce will have to wait another year now. I started pondering divorce at the beginning of COVID. Same here, bummer, because this is third marriage, never doing it again. Oh. Well, we are really sorry to hear that you guys have struggled so much in your relationships. Relationships are hard and they don't always work out, unfortunately. And that's not bad. Sometimes people just aren't meant to be together. There's just things that they can't work past, and that's okay. Just remember to love yourselves and practice compassion and self-care. And remember that as much as a relationship is nice, it's not necessary to be happy. It's okay to not be in a relationship if that's not going to work for you. And if someday down the road you change your mind, that's okay too. If you never do, that's okay too. It's okay to do what's right for you. There's nothing wrong with that. For me personally, in the specific situation that we've been dealing with, I have been willing to work with my husband. The reason for that is that I know for a fact that the things that he did were largely influenced by his untreated mental health stuff, because he does have comorbid things along with DID. And I know that before I was on medication for bipolar 2, for instance, I did some very not okay things. I was sometimes not a very nice person. So I'm willing to give him leeway to work out his stuff because our specific situation means that I understand that he can improve and he wants to improve and he's doing the work to improve. That's the biggest thing. He's willing to do the work. He's willing to do the work to make it right with us. He's willing to do the work to get to a healthier place. And that's the big thing. If he wasn't willing to do the work, then it would be an immediate deal breaker for me and everyone else. But because he's willing to do the work and because he's working so hard at trying to make right the things that were done wrong, I am willing to give him another chance. But that is a completely individual decision. And there, again, is no one-size-fits-all answer. Everybody has to do what's right for them. We can't wait to be single again. It's so hard for several of us to keep from telling them off. Yeah, that can be understandable when there's a lot of bad feelings and things like that. Maybe a more constructive way of dealing with that would be to have everybody write down their thoughts and then form that into a civilly put letter that you could give to him. You know, so everybody gets to express what they feel, but not in a way that's attacking him or is, you know, mean or anything like that, but in a way that expresses, here's what I'm feeling and here's why I'm feeling it. And then they can feel heard without doing something that might negatively impact your lives. Just a suggestion. I appreciate how you always speak so thoughtfully about our comments. Aw. Thank you. I certainly try. Husband is very in denial about his issues and thinks love is all you need. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Unfortunately, the reality is that people can only change if they want to. That really anybody, if they want to do the work and they're willing to work hard enough, can change. But they have to want to. And if they don't want to, it's not going to happen, unfortunately. I wish my husband were willing to do the work. Ditto, yeah. It's hard when someone that you care about isn't willing to do the work. I can understand that. We've had to end other relationships and friendships and cut off contact with family members because they weren't willing to do the work to respect our boundaries or to treat us right, things like that. And so it's understandable and it's okay to take care of yourselves. I just got news somebody who cyberbullied my system got their account deleted. It really is Friday now. That's very encouraging. That's awesome. People who bully anybody should not be allowed to continue to do so. It's harassment. In most places, it's illegal. And it's just not okay. Nobody ever has the right to treat anybody badly. People can disagree, and they can do it in a civil way. Nobody ever needs to be nasty or mean to anybody. It's not necessary. People always have the right to defend themselves, mind you. In no way, shape, or form am I espousing perfect pacifism and pleasantness all the time, because that's just not healthy. But nobody ever needs to be nasty to people just because. There's a huge difference between being assertive and being mean. And we all generally strive to err on the side of assertiveness. Some of us have more trouble with that than others, not gonna lie. But we try. Unfortunately, for instance, one of our protectors has gotten into a fair bit of trouble more than once in support communities because of expressing something very bluntly and not necessarily in the most tactful fashion. And that's something that has been worked on a lot. But at the same time, there were times when we felt like it was a little bit unfair. So it's kind of one of those things. But awesome that someone who is bullying you no longer gets the chance to do that. That is awesome. That is encouraging, Kevin. Yes, it definitely is. Tried the letter and we got a verbal pat on the head that we were just upset and he understands we were just saying it because of stress. Good idea, though. Oh, sad. It is really, really frustrating when people completely discount your feelings and invalidate them like that, and we're really sorry that you experienced that. That's not okay. Have any of your littles switched in public and they didn't pretend to be you? Yes. Yes, they have. Mostly because a lot of the littles have a really hard time pretending to be me. A lot of them simply can't pass as an adult person. Partly because some of them, with the way that they speak, they have trouble pronouncing certain words and things like that, or they're not able to read, things like that. They can't. And we've had plenty of moments where I was walking through, say, a grocery store. Here's a good example. I was walking through the grocery store, and we happened to walk by a display of, what was it? Chocolates? Yes, chocolates. And all of a sudden, Lo, who is 6.5, proceeded to be in the front, and I'm like, what's happening? What happened? Why am I in the back of the bus now instead of driving the bus, as we put it? Because, people like to use that car analogy for DID. We laughingly joke that ours is a bus because there's so many of us. But, yeah, suddenly she was fronting and jumping up and down and going, yay, candy. Now, mind you, that was mildly embarrassing for me. I'm not gonna lie. But I've gotten to a point now where I accept that she's a little kid. She's going to act like a little kid. And that's not bad. Even if sometimes it might be a little uncomfortable for me. As long as it's a safe situation for her to be out, I'm okay with it. Even if sometimes it feels a little mortifying to be watching, I accept it as best I possibly can. There was also an incident where there was a very bright pink toy that she was quite enamored with, and she showed up and proceeded to ask my husband very nicely in the sweetest jumping up and down fashion if she could please, please, please have that toy. It was very cute. He said yes and bought it for her because we had the extra money at the time. But yeah, there have been times when littles have just kind of showed up. Unfortunately, on the less bright side of things, there have been times when littles have showed up because of triggers in public, and usually that resulted in them fleeing whatever situation they were in and hiding, and then somebody else came and dealt with whatever the situation was, and then I came back going, what's going on? Where did I go? What time is it? It was really not very fun to suddenly lose a huge chunk. A good example was when we were younger, we went to a haunted house with an after school group, and while they weren't supposed to, some of the people in the haunted house decided it would be entertaining to grab kids, and one of them grabbed me and stuck their hand over my mouth, and it scared the daylights out of me. And then a guy with a fake chainsaw came running at me, and the next thing I was aware of, I was hiding under the exercise equipment halfway across the building. I have absolutely no memory of how I got there, still to this day. And I know that it was one of the younger members of our system who did that. And we generally avoid haunted houses now for that very reason. But yeah, there have been moments. They were transphobic towards my boyfriend, and I called him out, and he decided to get a group of people to attack me for having DID, so I'm thrilled about this. Oh, that sucks. I'm sorry that you experienced that. That's horrible. Well, glad for you that that person is no longer harassing you. That's just not okay. Miracle, we are OSDD, so we don't have almost any complete amnesia, but yes, littles have come out and not pretended to be me. We've almost always been with someone safe when it has happened. Yeah, it's always good when there's somebody safe out for that, because the littles running around unattended is not a good thing, as a general rule. That is actually why we have the rule in our system that if a little is fronting, there must be an adult, a protector, or somebody responsible who is old enough to be watching them, watching what's going on and remaining co-conscious so that everything stays safe, because we never ever want any young members of the system to get into a bad situation. And around safe outside people, we are fine with them being themselves if they're comfortable doing that. We generally have a semi-open existence about our DID. We're very open online and here on YouTube. In our day-to-day regular life, we are only open with people that we know are safe. It's not something we're open about in public. It's not something that we disclose to anybody who doesn't absolutely need to know, like doctors, for instance. We do disclose to doctors, dentists, anybody having to do with our physical care, mental health care, we disclose to those people. But your random average acquaintance, we don't disclose to. There are some of our friends who know. And that is because they are very good friends that we've known for a very long time. And we know are accepting, safe, good people. But most people still don't know. And that's only because we've not gotten to a place in the relationship with them as friends to feel that that would be something we're comfortable sharing yet. Because there are some friends that we've made living where we live now that we've known for a couple of years, for instance. But at the same time, we don't spend a lot of time with them. And so we haven't felt comfortable telling them. So it's just kind of one of those balancing acts we kind of have to figure out who is and is not someone we want to tell. And everybody has to make that choice for themselves. Just please, 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 if any of you who are part of the system are going to tell other people about being part of a system, please make sure that that person is safe, because we would not ever want anybody to end up in a bad situation. Our oldest child also has DID. Only him, our mom, our spouse, and therapist know. Can't imagine telling anyone else IRL. That's interesting that your oldest also has DID. I'm sorry to hear that they experienced trauma significant enough for that to happen, and that you guys did too. That's no fun. I can completely understand not telling a large group of people. Like, people that we personally know in our real life outside of here, there are four friends who know, and obviously my husband knows because, I married him. He also has EID, so we felt he was an okay person to talk to about that. And then our mother is the only other person who knows. Other than doctors, mental health professionals, people like that. Those are the only people that we know personally who know. And not gonna lie, the relationship with our mother is complicated. But it was one of those things that, because we share a house with her right now, which soon we actually won't be. I'm going to give you a little update on that in a second. But we actually share a house with her. We felt like it was something that was a good idea to mention so that people could feel more comfortable being themselves at home. But there are a good number of our system who really, really don't like our mother. So it's complicated. And there's various reasons for that. But on to the we're soon going to have our own house comment. So our mother is actually planning to move at the end of this year into a smaller house just for herself, and we are going to stay here, and we are going to actually be remodeling the house so that it fits our personal needs. We've actually already remodeled the downstairs bathroom, so we're actually really excited about it because we're finally going to have our own house. Yay! Thompson, my medical doctors do not know, only close friends know. Yeah, I mean, for us, like I said, everybody has to figure out what works for them. For us, the reason that we told medical doctors is just because there's a number of members of our system, especially the younger members, who get a lot of anxiety about medical stuff. And we were concerned that somebody might be triggered by something and would show up during some sort of medical appointment, and it would not go well if the doctor wasn't aware of what was going on. But we have immediately dropped any medical professional who wasn't understanding or accepting of our DID. So that too is also a thing. We can't imagine telling our MBs either. None took the autism well, so no way telling them about DID. Yeah, being as I am also autistic, I can understand that. Some people are unpleasant. And that includes professionals, unfortunately. That's why we've worked really, really hard to find people who are accepting and okay with it, and who are accepting and okay with who we are in general as individuals within the system and all of that. That took work. And it's only because we have really good insurance that we can do that. So it's not something that necessarily everybody can be able to do. And so we completely understand that some people aren't going to be able to disclose to medical professionals. Congrats on having space to yourselves. Oh, I thank you. Much appreciated. Yes, we're very excited about it. Yeah, I don't have a reason to tell them. Makes sense. If you don't have a reason to tell them, then there's no reason that you should. You got to do what's right for you. That's always the best answer. Well, looking at the clock, it is getting a little bit late, and I actually need to go make dinner. So we're going to go ahead and end it here at an hour and almost 10 minutes. So any last questions, comments, etc. before we end this? We'll be happy to answer a few more. And if anybody has any other questions or comments, feel free to leave them under the video or send them to us in our email. We will get back to people as soon as possible. But is there anything else anybody wants to say before we go? This keeps falling off my face. Thanks, Kit. Also nice to talk with you, and congrats on 700. Aw, thank you. You're very welcome. Anybody else? Nope, have a good night. I had fun. Awesome. Glad you had fun. We hope to see all of you again in future live streams and see you guys commenting below videos. So, yay. I got diagnosed while I was living with my aunt, so not even my mom knows I have DID, and I will not be telling her. Completely understandable. Like I said, everybody's got to figure out who is safe for them to tell. Nothing wrong with that. Appreciate your videos, Kit. Aw, thank you. My mom is the type of mental illness doesn't exist type of person, so it's a no from me. That makes perfect sense. That is obviously not a safe person to tell. Thank you. Aw, you're welcome. And smiley faces to all. Aw, yay. Alright, everybody. Well, you all have a good day, and take care of yourselves, or night, if it's nighttime where you are. And I hope everybody has a good one. We will see you next time.